Hey guys, what is up here? It's your boy Cool Titanium 68 and welcome back to a new YouTube video. First off, yes, this is probably going to be permanent for a good while. Now, let's get into the actual stuff. Worldwide Developers Conference. My lord, was it such a good conference. It was actually good. Even though I was about a half hour into it, I didn't actually watch it live. I was basically just watching the stuff, and then as they're doing like demonstrations, I was just skip. I want to actually get to the good stuff. And it was so good. 3.5 pages worth of notes. So, first things first, what was the first thing Tim Cook said? The App Store turns 10 years old. Yes, everybody, that is it. The App Store is turning 10 years old. And that is a pretty big milestone because it is one of the biggest places to make an app. And actually, there's some pretty intimidating facts about this. But enough about the App Store. Let's go into iOS 12. Probably one of the biggest things that, well, everyone wants to watch for because they all have iPhones. So, I think the so one of the big things about this is going to be talking about performance boosts. So, it's just going to be working faster and it's being more responsive. So, I would probably be expecting a higher score on the Geekbench or whatever thing that iOS users, well, that any smartphone person uses for their phone. I just haven't watched any of those videos in a while. So, what's pretty big about this one is that it's going to be the same devices as iOS 11, dating all the way back to the 5S, which came out 5 years ago. Yes, the iPhone 5S is still getting iOS 12. That's a big thing. And I think what they're really going to try and do is optimize the system under load, which there's going to be a slew of improvements. You'll probably be able to see that in the iOS 12 beta, which be able to watch that. So, augmented reality is going to be getting a new feature. Number one being Apple's actually trying to introduce a standardized file format for augmented reality called WWDC. And actually, Adobe is one of the big pushes towards this. Yes, the big company Adobe, like people who have brought you Adobe Flash Player. And yes, for those of you YouTubers, those who have brought in Adobe Premiere Pro, they're really trying to push WWDC to work. And since we're still on the topic of AR, of augmented reality, there's not going to be a new AR kit called AR Kit 2. It's basically going to introduce 3D objects. Sorry about that. I'm probably going to turn that off. There's going to be an introduction. There's going to be improved face tracking, and then there's also going to be use of persistence and shared experience. So you're allowed to have more than one person use the same augmented reality thing. So you can play augmented reality games with another person, which is pretty cool to play. Now, on some of the apps, Measure is going to be a new app, and yes, as y'all can probably think, it's literally going to be for measuring. So that's not too big. Siri got some big updates. So they're now adding in shortcuts, meaning you can, let's see here. So you're allowed to have a shortcut. Okay, let me think about this. You can set a shortcut from your app just to say like a one phrase, like let's say game time. Let's say like the phrase is game time and you set it on that app. You say game time to Siri and it'll show you like all the stats for that game. It's pretty cool. And then we've got Siri suggestions, meaning if you're consistently, like let's say every day you're ordering the same Starbucks, well Siri will put up a suggestion on there. Order, let's say the white chocolate mocha. And there you go. It's already done. So Apple News actually got a really big redesign, and it's actually pretty cool. So there's a new browse tab where you can like look at where you can actually look at the specific thread or even the specific news source and just see what's going on. And then they have a new sidebar, so you can do them consistently, which actually I think that's going to be a pretty big thing, which will also be said later in this video, coincidentally. So again, stocks has also been redesigned, and what's also very cool about this is that Apple News is bringing in their own news sources. So it's not going to be those news sources that like the stocks usually has. It's going to be true. It's going to be like news from Apple News, and it's going to have like the little line spike thing that you'd see like on if you just looked up the stock price on Google. So that's actually a pretty big plus for that. Voice memo actually got redesigned and actually now has support for the iPad, which is actually pretty cool, because what used to happen is I'll tell you about that. Sorry, I was thinking of something else, but I realized, that's for another part of the video. So now it has support for iCloud, and it's mainly because it's going to use for the iCloud support. So that's actually going to be really cool. iBooks also got redesigned, and it's not called iBooks anymore, everyone. It's called Apple Books now. So now you can, so now there's this feature called Pickup, where you're basically, pick you back up from where you last read. And yeah, there's also a new store for it. So instead of like, I think going on to the App Store, they have their own built-in phone. Sorry about that. I'll get to him later. So let's see here. Yes. So another big thing is on Apple CarPlay. So Apple CarPlay now has support for third-party navigation, meaning navigation apps. So that means you can use things like Google Maps and actually the very trustworthy Waze, which is what I use, which I would actually be pretty happy about. And another big thing that Apple didn't want to talk about is distraction. Basically, on just screen time. So one thing, before we start this, last year, Apple introduced Do Not Disturb while driving, which basically brings Do Not Disturb to whenever you're driving. I'm going to turn this side down and see. There we go. So, Do Not Disturb while driving came out with iOS 11. This time, it's Do Not Disturb during bedtime. So that means that instead of like having this, it's just going to be a black screen, and I think the notifications will be the same color, but it's going to be a total black screen. So that's actually going to be very useful for something like when you're sleeping, so that you don't have, it's like, if you have your face up like this, which I don't do that, you don't have to like suffer that much. So notifications, a big rumor for notifications was that there's going to be grouped notifications, and if you guys didn't see the keynote, it's here. So it's going to be grouped. You can group notifications by app, by the topic. Like, let's say in messages, you can group them not just by the messages app, but also if there's like multiple messages from like the same person, it'll group that. It'll group like all the messages for that person. And then there's also Thread, which I've actually got kind of confused for that. And then there's also instant tuning, which also you can actually do that with Siri suggestions. So that's pretty cool. And of course, to limit distractions, we have this thing called screen time. So it gives you a weekly report of basically how long you've been on your screen, how many times you've picked up your phone, how many times, like what games you use the most, what apps you use the most. It is probably right now. I didn't even list I probably listed about a fifth of what's on there. It is so big. You can also put a limit on your app, so you can put up like a timer for, like, let's say, oh, I want to be on Snapchat for only an hour and a half today. Once you've been on there for an hour and a half, it says, please move. It'll say, like, it's time to move on from Instagram. You've done your hour and a half today. So, what's also good is, actually, in a later thing, we're going to talk more about this, but continuity. There's also continuity between, actually a continuity in between both of them, between both the iPhone and the iPad, because they can both work the same thing, which I think that'll be pretty cool for, like, adults who actually want to use this. Now, of course, we've got messages, new messages, of course. So I was thinking, oh wow, what else are you gonna do? So with the Animojis, they're coming out with tongue detection. So usually, with Animoji, you're allowed to, like, open your mouth, but you can't stick out your tongue. With the thing now, you can stick out your tongue, which is actually pretty cool. And then they also have this thing called Memo. Well, before we start off with the whole new Memoji thing, we're also adding 4 new characters. They're adding the ghost, the koala, the tiger, and the T-Rex. Just saying. So now they're coming out with Memoji. So if any of you don't have Snapchat and use Bitmoji, if any of you do have Snapchat and use a Bitmoji for that, then you'll probably know what Memoji is. It's basically, I think it's basically Bitmoji, but it's only your face and it uses Animo. It's basically an Animoji, but it's yourself. Basically, Bitmoji and Animoji came together to work on this. FaceTime actually got some pretty significant upgrades. So number one is that it's integrated to messages. So you can instantly have a group chat with the people inside of your messages thread, and there you go. That's basic, and you can do that. What's also cool, and actually this is a pretty big deal, is that you can now have a group FaceTime chat of up to 32 people. That's a lot of people. Actually, there's actually a really cool animation from, there's a really cool demonstration from this, where they'll have, like, everybody, like, have their own square, but but one person's screen will get bigger when they're the ones talking, and it looks so cool. Plus, Animoji's inside of it, so it's gonna look pretty cool when it's all done. That's it for iOS. Now, if y'all probably are here only for iOS, you can probably stop the video right here, because now we're going to talk about watchOS 5. So, watchOS 5 it's actually going to be pretty significant. So, there's now a new thing where you can challenge other people to complete your rings. So, yeah, so basically, if you have, like, several of your friends who have an Apple Watch, you can come together with them and say, oh yeah, I bet I can do much better than you on how many calories I can burn. There you go. That's basically what it is. But yeah, there's also in the entire workouts app, they've added a pretty good amount of things. So there's also an addition of yoga, so you can actually still get stuff from your yoga workouts, hiking, so those actually count as a workout. You can actually get your rolling mile. There's actually pace alerts, and you can also run with the cadence. And what's also really cool is that it can detect, like, let's say if you're on a Stepmaster, it'll detect, oh, are you doing a workout on a Stepmaster? You can say yes, and there you go. Yeah, so another cool thing is the walkie-talkie app, is walkie-talkie. So basically, it's basically what it says. It's a walkie-talkie, but it's built into your Apple Watch. So I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, there's getting some new content in the Siri watch face. I don't remember exactly what was supposed to be on there. I think there's some new things with like Apple News. So yeah, that'll be pretty cool. They've also improved their notifications. Kind of like, I think what they're doing is they're kind of taking the iOS approach for iOS 12, and I think they're also grouping notifications. Like, they're really improving that. Now, another big downside to the Apple Watch these days is that you really can't view a lot of things. Like, if you have an email and it's like not words, then you really can't view it that much because it's just content, and it basically says this content cannot be viewed. Well, with WatchOS 5, you can do that. Like, you can look at web content. It's actually supposed to be really cool. So I think with WatchOS 4, we were able to. There's a support for Apple Music, where you can listen to your own music on there, and it was pretty cool. Now, there's support for podcasts. So if you have like a voiced podcast that you want to listen to, you can literally like have that on, have your headset or earbud or wireless earbuds on, just walk around and there you go. And what's also cool is that some of the new apps that are coming are also allowing background audio. So that'll be pretty cool. And that's it for macOS. Let's look at tvOS. The big thing about that is support for Dolby Atmos. So I think this is also one of the only things that support both Dolby Atmos and the most recent Dolby. I don't remember what the most recent Dolby was, but both of them are able to support it now. It's able to support both of them. So, all new movies, all new 4K HDR movies are going to have support with Dolby Atmos, and as time rolls on, they're going to upgrade all those other movies to Dolby Atmos. So they're also enabling that. They're also allowing you to add sports and news channels, which is also why. And actually, I was watching this. Sorry. So they've actually partnered with like well-known international TV providers that like everybody watches, and in that country. The good thing is, they're basically promoting the Apple TV 4K to those regions. So now you're allowed to like watch a 4K HDR movie on something like that, but you can still be able to like watch the same shows. It's gonna be pretty cool. Now, I think with the latest tvOS, they also did the single sign-on option for TV apps like that are inside of your are on like your computer or your phone. This time there's this new thing called Zero Sign-In, and there's actually I think 3 or 4 companies that are actually doing this. And if any of you have Charter Spectrum and do have an Apple TV with it, you guys are in luck because you guys are able to have Zero Sign-In, and they're actually going to start rolling it out on other places. But that's it for macOS. For tvOS. Let's get into macOS, which is now under macOS Mojave. Wow, that actually looks stunning. And I think the big thing about this is the new dark mode. So what they do is, and if you looked at the Mojave wallpaper, they turn it like into like what that place like the sand dune looks like at night, and it integrates that. So yes, it'll be at night, but it's not gonna be like, oh, everything's black. It's kind of just like when it's at nighttime, everything's gray. So it looks pretty cool, actually. And then there's also this thing called a dynamic desktop. So basically that means, like, if you have your desktop on all day, I'm not kidding about this, the time of day on the, like, as the day rolls on, so will the screen. Like, it'll literally go down, like, when it gets, like, evening, it'll look like it's evening time. And when it's nighttime, it'll look like it's nighttime. It looks really cool. Now, of course, I think what everybody's kind of, well, not so great about is that, well, if you really don't want to organize, you've got things all over the place, which is kind of like what everybody hates. But now they have this thing called desktop stacks. So you're allowed to arrange like multiple different things, either by the kind of either by like like the type of document or whatever thing, either by date, or even if you have tags on it, by tag. So that actually looks pretty cool, because you can because even if you add something, it'll immediately put that into a different stack. It'll immediately put that into a stack. Finder actually got some new updates, so it's also come with a thing called gallery view, meaning you can also, let me think about this. So it's kind of like what you see as a gallery, but it's also like at the bottom of the screen you just scroll through wherever. And this works for like any type of, like any file. Like if it's a PDF, Word document, doesn't matter. It still works. So the sidebar actually introduces this thing called full metadata. I don't even know if that's the right thing, but it allows you to do some. It allows you to do some quick actions. It's also pretty customizable. And now there's this thing called Quick Look, meaning, I think, yeah. So I think this has already been on iOS, where when you take a screenshot, you get like a little thumbnail on the bottom left of your screen, and you can open it up and you can edit it. This is basically what it is on the Mac, and they've also integrated the whole markup thing. So it's actually pretty cool. You can also do screen captures, like straight into the straight up in the Mac, so that you don't have to get like a third-party thing like, QuickTime Player. And then of course there's new things like Apple News is on Mac. Apple News has now been integrated into the Mac. Stocks has been integrated into the Mac. Voice Memos has been integrated into the Mac. And Home has been integrated into the Mac. They're the same exact iOS apps. But now you might be thinking, well, how would they do that? What they did actually is, instead of having to create an entirely new application, because the Mac and your iPhone actually use different ways of basically building an app. But now they took a chunk of like how they made iOS apps and put it into how they make Mac apps. So that's how they were able to put like Apple News and Stocks and Voice Memos and Home in there. And yes, the integration of Apple News into Stocks is available for Mac also. And then of course, there's a bunch of security improvements. Let me actually go into some of them back here. So for Safari, oh God, sorry about that. So for the Safari, it's basically almost going to shut down cookie tracking. But what's actually pretty weird is that they can actually track you. Like if you see a comment, if you see say, oh, leave a comment, they can track you through that, which is kind of weird. And Apple's really trying to shut that down. And then there's also this weird thing called fingerprinting, which means they take, let's see here. Yeah, they'll take data from like what you do like on different websites to create basically a fingerprint for you. What Apple's trying to do is they're going to try and make it harder to do that because they don't want data companies to do that, basically. I mean, have you seen what happened to Mark Zuckerberg? Apple learned from that one. And so yeah, basically it's gonna make your Mac almost look like every other Mac. So it's really, really safe. Which is kind of also why I have a MacBook Air right here, right now. Yes, I use a MacBook Air. Now, of course, we have a totally redesigned App Store. It actually looks more like the iOS App Store for the Mac, which is actually pretty cool. And actually, any Microsoft people, any Microsoft fans that have a Windows desktop will be happy to hear that Office 365 will be coming to the App Store to download, which is pretty cool. Now, that is it for today's video. I know it's actually pretty long, but it's what you gotta do when you got something like this. So, hope you guys like this video. Like and subscribe. Peace out. Okay, so yeah, basically, before I go, this whole thing was basically, at the end, they did a really cool video about the developers. I would definitely recommend rewatching the entire keynote if you can and if you want to, and if you're kind of skeptical about it. But I would definitely like to do it. So, again, hope you liked the video. Like, subscribe.